Hey everyone, welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
Jaime Fuego here.
Here to do a late review for you guys at this point. Normally we do early reviews, but
We were
our
busy
schedules,
bees.
our schedules would not allow for us to see this movie opening weekend literally because it happened to be coinciding with the final weekend of the Phoenix Film Festival for 2019.
Yeah, we had press opportunity too, and we were just,
Couldn't do it.
Hefty schedule.
We were busy watching 18 other movies at another film festival that haven't even come out yet for you guys to watch those reviews of that are active now, most of them. So, but as a result, we had to wait. We even got to see La Llorona, which came out a week after Hellboy, before we got to see Hellboy. Yeah. So here we are.
Yeah,
to talk about 2019's Hellboy.
One of my most anticipated films of the year, like legitimately, with the fact that Harbour was playing Hellboy. I was so up for that casting. Neil Marshall directing, R-rated. But what the hell happened, man?
It was a mess. This movie was a mess.
And I had some fun here and there.
I had fun here and there, and I liked one or two things, but it's just overall, I really disliked quite a bit of this movie, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get into it. We'll do this review like we do our normal reviews, our overall thoughts, and then the story, then the acting, the effects, the cinematography, all that good stuff in turn. And yeah, I mean, I think we just covered the long and short of our overall thoughts. I liked one or two things. I liked a couple of things, but I thought overall it was a muddled CGI Van Helsing-esque movie. Like the Hugh Jackman Van Helsing from the early 2000s or mid or late 2000s, whenever it was from, is when this movie looks like it was from, and that is not a good thing in 2019.
Yeah, it's so funny because of the fact that they set the tone initially with how violent things were going to be, and yet hearing the behind-the-scenes fracas and all of the drama and the problems and stuff like that, I couldn't help but see it in everything from the editing to like the poor CGI and all of this other stuff. And so, yeah, as a whole, man, major disappointment. Although I had some genuine fun with a couple beats in this movie, but aside from that, yeah.
So we'll get to that. Let's talk about the story. Go ahead. You do the story on this one.
Well, the story essentially entails it starts with like Knights of the Round Table, type of stuff, and there's this crazy like witch of a woman almost, like nasty force played by Mila Jovovich, and she is she's trying to invoke this like plague of sorts across all of England and presumably most of Europe and so on and so forth. But our head of the round table, whose name is totally eluding me,
Arthur?
King Arthur, exactly. Yeah, hey, that's what I said. But yeah, he basically decides to dispatch her and decapitates that head and limbs and everything and send all of the various pieces to different parts of England. And lo and behold, all these years later, we have Hellboy kind of caught in the mix of trying to fight this crazy, just regenerated woman after some longtime followers try to reassemble her. We get a little bit of backstory with Ian McShane's character as his father and how he saved him from the Nazi stuff, but it's essentially the same thing that we saw in the first Hellboy, right, in the origin story and everything. And it's a much more breezed over and strangely edited film, and really it just boils down to him almost being a potential love interest for her once she's reassembled, and just wrestling with being tempted towards his dark side, which obviously is very much a part of him being from hell. So yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, he's basically fighting with two different sides of himself. And hang on, fuck. I don't like getting attacked by yawns right now. All right, let me take a break. Now, regarding the story, I just had some issues, man. I think it was it felt very haphazardly thrown together. Like, there's the intro where she gets split apart. There's the intro to Hellboy where he doesn't even really find out about her until first he has to face three giants, which...
But even before that, where he's down in Mexico and he's like trying to save his friend who is investigating some vampire stuff.
Yeah, and we get introduced to this girl that he ends up going on the whole crusade with, who can vomit up spiritual representations of things. And it's very, again, the movie is just sort of, it felt haphazardly thrown together to me.
Yeah. Hence me mentioning the editing. It's like weird beat after beat that none of which really seems supremely cohesive. It's just like, it feels so thrown together and so speedy, and just everything is just grazed over. And then we jump to something else, and then we jump to something else. It's cool. It's some cool set pieces. Like, I enjoyed the giant fight. I enjoyed the crazy, nasty climax we get with, like, the destruction of London or whatever it was. But as a whole, it's like there was no genuine emotion, at least for me, with much of anything that transpired.
No, I agree with you. And the story, it didn't even really, like, Hellboy was in the whole movie, but I don't feel like he did any sort of growing throughout the movie at all. Like, it just, everything was just happening to him and around him, and he just kind of had to, like, there was a portion at which he had to make a decision and stuff, and you know, the fate of the world, as it were, maybe rested on that decision, but then it, you know, they get around that and stuff like that, and it wasn't as entertaining as I was hoping it would be. Now, contrastly, there were certain things that I liked better, and we'll get to those in the different portions of the movie, but yeah, the story, it was just a hodgepodgey mess, and I didn't like what they did with you know, the origins that we saw, and even like two different origins where we saw what happened to a character named Rasputin, plays a much bigger role in the comic books, and
that's where you know more than me, because I haven't read any of the comic books.
Yeah,
Mike
I do. Mike Mignola, and Mignola, whatever. He's done a lot of things. He's done probably 30 volumes of Hellboy, and I think he did maybe 40 volumes of Hellboy and 30 volumes of BPRD at this point. BPRD, I think, finally ended, and Hellboy supposedly did too, but now Hellboy's coming back again. So you can't keep a good hero down. And
guess
so
not.
I guess a lot of the issues most of the issues came with the story and everything in this one. So I gotta say, there was just some nonsensical stuff. While the Hellboy lore does indeed tie into the Arthurian legend.
I was unaware of that, because did they even feature any of that in those previous Guillermo movies?
No, not that I recall, but there is, I do remember seeing a Hellboy with a sword in the stone on the cover, so I believe, and listen, and maybe I'm making that up for the sake of this, and maybe I'm completely wrong, but I believe that's the case. It's been, I don't have all the Hellboy trades, I have about the first 20. So that covers like up till 10 years ago, so I'm behind on the character technically, but you know, I know a lot about him, and that's why I'm not happy about certain things. Like, if we're gonna get into the acting of it, I thought David Harbour was good in the role he was given, but that wasn't Hellboy.
They didn't give him much, man, and the tone of the character felt so completely different.
Hellboy is definitely more stoic. Ron Perlman, here's the thing. Ron Perlman nailed the characterization of Hellboy.
Yeah,
but they nailed the look of Hellboy in this one, I think.
With the hair and everything.
The hair and the scarred up look, and not as glossy all over. You know, his body didn't shimmer in the light.
That's true.
So
that was all that extra Guillermo money.
Yeah. But I thought he looked better in this, although he looked much more grotesque and less humanoid in the face. But I think that made sense. You know, he's supposed to be a demon, a half human, half demon. And so I think that worked, and so I liked the look of him, but while I did like David Harbour's portrayal, this portrayal was not the Hellboy I know. He's not the guy. He doesn't do that. He like just be like, yo, get your game face on, and then he'll just punch him and walk away and stuff like that. Like,
yeah, it was super goofy in that regard, man. I have to say that whereas performance-wise in the previous film, I felt like there was and I mentioned this off camera to you, there's an element of sophistication to those previous two films, from the acting and the core cast and everything like that. This one just, I didn't really feel like anybody really was bringing their A game necessarily. I mean, Mila Jovovich, obviously, you know, she did the Resident Evil films and things like that, and so she's up for and used to these sort of hammy, ridiculous, big CGI fests and stuff like that. And I felt like she just kind of brought about that level of approach. And, you know, Harbour didn't wow me. I mean, McShane, even, as much as I love him in anything that I see him in, whether it's Deadwood, John Wick, American Gods, whatever, he honestly felt like he was just kind of hanging out and not really doing as much. I didn't feel the love between him and Harbor, you know? And so, I don't know. It was and yet so many big names within this cast, and for them to fall flat the way they did, I hate to call out Neil Marshall and the performances he got out of his actors, but yeah, that's kind of on him to some regard.
I agree. It was rough. It was rough at times, and I do think some actors did better than others. I do think Harbor did his best, and he did what he could. But
It was okay.
I mean, the other characters, Daimyo and the female, I can't remember her name.
The girl with the dreadlocks.
Yeah, the dreadlocks.
Oh.
Looks like she was Rocky Creed's girlfriend.
Tessa Thompson, she is not.
Oh, was that her? Tessa Thompson's in those?
No, yeah, that's Tessa Thompson.
I didn't realize that was her. Wow, okay.
Yeah, she's great.
I guess that makes sense. The deaf girl? That's Tessa Thompson?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Dang, I didn't even put that two and two together.
Yeah, Ragnarok.
I know Tessa Thompson from Ragnarok, yeah. But anyway, so moving on. I thought that some of the acting was okay, but a lot of it was just so crazy, over the top, and hampered by the visual effects. I mean, Mila Jovovich was so over the top, and
they were trying to set a tone that was so drastically different than those previous two films, and they were really trying to camp it up and make it just crazy and almost silly.
And I'm a big Ian McShane fan, but he Michael Caine and Jaws 4 this one. You know what I mean? Like,
but I love Jaws the Revenge. I
actually do too, but
I have a soft spot in my heart.
But from most people's point of view, no. Like this feels like Ian McShane lending his expertise to a D-level sort of situation. On a side note, having watched the second episode of Game of Thrones last night, they advertised the Deadwood movie coming up, and I was so excited to see
Timothy Olyphant.
Yeah, all of them were back, dude. All of them were back. It looks so cool.
Brad Dourif is on that too.
Yeah, it looks so awesome.
I can't wait.
Anyway,
yeah.
Back to Hellboy. Yeah,
Yes.
So the acting just it didn't do much for me, and honestly, the biggest thing that was a fail for me, I thought the music was super over the top. That's not what I'm leading towards, but let's talk about it briefly.
Well, dude, they licensed so many songs, which honestly took me out of it a little bit.
Yeah.
Especially the whole, giant fight to the Muse song. It's not one of my favorite Muse songs, that Psycho song or whatever. I felt like it was one of the weakest links of that particular Muse album. I love Muse, but, God, what else? There were so many, big-time songs from large artists, and it added to that cheese factor.
Yeah, and there was some unnecessary metal rock stuff at times that was just like, really?
And that was the score.
Yeah. And the music just was not doing it for me. And let me say, something I absolutely have to mention.
Please do.
is there was some god-awful ADR in this movie. There was so many lines that were added in after the fact where the actors aren't even on screen, but you hear them continuing their lines in order to throw in a joke or whatever. But everything that was added was so painfully obvious and not even really funny or worth adding in. Like, the ADR in this movie was ridiculously bad.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if there was so much that was filmed on set, and then when there were those issues that they mentioned, they're like, okay, we gotta humor it up, we gotta do this, we gotta do that, let's do it in post, let's figure it out. And yeah, so much of it did not hit, man.
Oh my god, it was so awful. But I think the biggest flaw, while there were aspects of the story that I found redemption in, the fact that, hell was coming to Earth. I always like seeing that and how
also,
far they're willing to go.
And his weird loyalty to the creature side of him, and how that's how Mila
how he's fighting that.
Appeal to him and everything.
How do you deal with Excalibur and stuff? God, that stuff is just so bad.
Yeah, it was pretty silly.
But it did also lead to the coolest scene in the whole movie, where when he's tempted with Excalibur, he grabs the sword. And he sees
the horns grow out.
Well, no, he sees the vision first of himself riding a giant dead dragon. Which, by the way, this doesn't make sense because the dragon's wings are full of holes, so it wouldn't actually be able to fly. So that was just artistic, integrity out the window. But anyway, Hellboy flies in on the dragon, hops off the dragon, and starts cutting down swaths of humans in the biggest CG fest you could possibly imagine. And while the scene was cool, once you got down and started slicing through swaths of humans in the biggest video game CG fest ever, it just didn't look good to me at all.
Fake, man. Super fake. Although what didn't look as fake, or at least if it was, and well, it's obviously fake. It was CGI crap, but the monster attack at the very end of the film, I have to say was a ton of fun. And between that and the silliness of the whole giant medley of eating people and everything, those are two of my favorite beats in the entire film because of the fact that they showed just how ridiculously gory, crazy this film was willing to go. They did embrace the R rating that they were deemed acceptable, but
there's disturbing imagery.
Does a good film that make? Yeah, no, not necessarily.
No, but there is disturbing imagery. I could see this becoming a cult film down the line just because a lot of the different action scenes, the fact that they really went for it for a lot of stuff. Again, when we get to the point where hell rises. But I actually liked a lot of the other little things that we got, like some of the stuff you were just talking about, the illusions and stuff, which I don't want to necessarily spoil for everyone. Some of that stuff was really entertaining to see, you know what I mean?
And I felt like they went way more for it than we saw on other R-rated properties like Resident Evil, like Underworld. Like they really, they went balls to the wall with some of the gore.
The giant fight was really dope, and not only that, but I mean there was a bit of cool stuff. I love the whole
pile of carcasses, and they're just like sucking up the.
And let me say, there was some disturbing imagery via Baba Yaga. I thought Baba Yaga was really creepy in the way they had her.
And that was practical.
Yeah, well, mostly. I mean, her moving around on her peg legs and stuff was
but like the makeup and everything.
But yeah, the makeup and stuff looked really good. And the fact that she was, oh God, and she was like sipping on children's flesh. And they don't shy away from that. Like, he leans over and sees like an abattoir of children hanging from the ceiling, just dead and flesh ripped off, and you're like, good Lord, this movie's taking it aggressive.
Yeah, and that was the sort of stuff that I was like, okay, I can't hate this movie because they're just willing to go for it. But as a whole,
it's
cool
a poor
scenes
story.
of that, cool scenes of that nature cannot salvage a very poorly edited and just lazily written script.
Yeah, no, I agree. It really can't. So. I mean, I don't know. Cinematography is not much to speak of. It's just pretty serviceable.
And Neil Marshall has made such great-looking stuff, man.
Dude, I love Dog Soldiers, obviously.
And I mean, I think The Descent is overrated.
I really like The Descent a lot.
Do you? Yeah. I mean, better than Dog Soldiers, though? I don't know.
I don't know if it's better than Dog Soldiers, but it's definitely really good for what it's attempting to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean...
Super claustrophobic, creepy, humanoid creatures.
Yeah, exactly, which is the one thing I think didn't work as much for me. I didn't find them as scary because they were like human cave dweller whatevers. But, I mean, he has shown quite a few times with... I mean, this is probably his worst movie, which sucks to admit. I mean, I can't... There's nothing that comes to mind because he doesn't have like an extensive... filmography.
It's really rough, man. It's really rough.
Yeah, this was, but
some of the dialogue is so freaking bad.
And yet, I'm trying to recall.
Oh my God,
did he write
puns.
the script for this?
I don't know.
I cannot recall offhand.
The fact that he didn't veto some of these lines as director is just ridiculous.
Even if he didn't put it together.
And then, of course, well, you know what? Just real quick, let's get into the spoilers at the end. Well, before we do that, there is a scene where Hell is attempting to be brought into our world, and that's where you get one of the scenes where from the trailer where a giant creature is like tossing a human and cutting it in half in midair. This had a bunch of different huge demons come out and really start wreaking havoc on London and the UK, and it was disturbing to see some of that stuff. And that, I was like, let me see a movie of this.
Yeah.
It was like Attack on Titan status, but live action and really cool.
Some of the deaths were legit disgusting, and I couldn't help but recall the old Tops dinosaur attacks and Mars attacks and stuff, because like each beat, each kill was just that nastily put together. And hey man, I had fun with that scene. That was a really cool scene. Sadly, it's very short-lived, and then we jump back to the hammy dialogue and the boring narrative. But nonetheless, for like, in some ways, I can't say that was worth the price of admission. But I don't know. It was entertaining. I will give it that.
All right. Well.
And I mean, spoilers. There were some post credits for a sequel that's never going to happen because this
bombed
at the box office.
Sequel baits.
No.
One, we get Baba Yaga talking to someone about how she's going to take revenge.
Let them live or let them come back to life or something like that, if I remember.
And then the other mid-credit scene, or no, the epilogue of the movie,
that's where
actually.
He's drunk in the graveyard, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, that's right. The mid-credit scene is drunk in the graveyard, and we get a glimpse of Lobster Johnson, who I actually do have the first trade of the Lobster Johnson as well.
It's
Thomas Hayden Church.
Yeah, that's right.
From for those of you that like wine, he's from Sideways, and
he was also Sandman.
Yep, Sandman.
The third Spider-Man.
Exactly. Started acting when he was in his 40s, so I always looked to him as an example. Yeah.
That old. Damn,
yeah.
That's
so
crazy. He was on Wings.
So yeah,
too, right?
that was a bit of a throwback and fun. Like, I love you, Lobster Johnson.
Yeah, but it's just his ghost, right? And then he walks right through and everything. And he's on Ian McShane's grave, just getting super faded. Yeah, Hellboy does a lot of drizzling in this movie.
So we didn't actually address the fact that the effects are so bad a lot of the times. I mean, that's a problem. Like, there's some cool practical effects, like the look of Hellboy I think was a good practical effect, but there is a ton of really, 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 really garbage CGI.
Like, shaving down the horns is really bad when that's
shaving down the horns isn't even really bothering me as much as all the stuff that the girl could suddenly do, and like they tried to
the whole like jumping out of the mouth kind of
thing that was the worst, and it looked so CG, and they tried to use that effect for an emotional bit at the end, and you're so distracted by how disgusting everything looks that the emotion is completely lost on the scene.
Yeah.
So the effects were just really abysmal at times.
Well, and also
even the fact that Hellboy has the right hand of Doom. He's not holding the right hand of Doom. So in this, he's got one much longer arm than the other. When in fact his arms are the same length, it's just one of them is the right hand of Doom from here on. The other one is a regular arm from here on. But since they had to have David Harbour hold something, his right arm is like twice as long as his left arm, and it looks ridiculous in some shots.
Yeah, it's stuck out like a sore thumb or a sore hand.
A sore arm,
yeah, exactly.
I hate you for doing it.
Oh, I know. Beat that red-headed dead horse, man, or that red-headed Hellboy in this particular case. But yeah, those the out-of-the-mouth stuff looked terrible. That honestly, even though it was cool to see the carnage those creatures in the third act inflicted, and same with the giants, they looked super, super fake, man. And when you've seen stuff like that done really well, in my estimation, even in, lots of people hate on Thor: The Dark World. I actually particularly really like that movie. And, yeah, I mean, and that's a film from years ago at this point in comparison with this one. And it just, this had so much potential in my estimation with everybody who was assembled. And with a cool property like this, the R-rated capacity, and yet fall flat on its face the way that it did.
And they sequel bait with a very familiar character whose cameo looks ridiculous.
The Sapien?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a giveaway. But
well, yeah, but we're in spoilers.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, so they tease Abe Sapien at the very end where you just see an arm slap up against a tube in this Atlantean research facility that they're doing. And the arm, I swear to God, looked like a werewolf arm rather than a scaled fish arm.
It's not cool.
It looked so bad, man.
And honestly, that scene, especially where the three of them are on their little mission, since they're all officially part of the, whatever, what is it, the
BPRD, the Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense.
They had donuts for chemistry, those three.
Yeah, they really did.
They just really...
The chemistry in the first one was way better.
100 times better. And Selma Blair.
And obviously Ron.
Yeah.
And eventually the German that comes in, the air German.
What happened, man? What happened?
It was a mess, man. This was a really unfun movie to watch at times. Like the line, they give Hellboy the biggest 70s action movie send-off one-liner at the end.
He had some of the worst one-liners throughout.
Oh, no, but this one was so bad that we've literally seen mocked numerous times in better material, and man, he's going to have to live with that forever, although that may be the point. Like,
it was almost a deliberate thing, I would say.
Oh, man. So bad.
Like, just in case you didn't notice, we're not taking this material very seriously at all.
No, not at all. So... I don't know, man. This is a mess of a movie, and I don't really feel like talking about it much more.
I was going to say, we ended up talking about it far longer than I even anticipated.
So let's call it there. That's going to do it for our thoughts on the 2019 reboot of Hellboy.
What a debacle.
Oh, what a mess.
Send
And
it back
Mike
to hell.
Mignola apparently had like time to consult and stuff like that. It just didn't make a damn bit of difference.
No, unfortunately
Anyway.
not. So, hey, can we get that third Germ movie, please? Give him the
No,
$200
that's
million.
never going to happen. So, thank you guys very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, click the like button and subscribe if you want to see more like it. Until next time, though, I've been Cecil Laird.
Gracias to our patrons. I've been Jaime Fuego.
And remember, stay scared
of this film.